made it to the last tutorial, number 12 for me. The next 3 after this will be for enrichment if you want to go and dive into them. And of course, I'm always going to encourage you to look outside of what I've taught you to learn more about what your interests are. So this one's going to be about like filling a space with repeating techniques over and over again to fill a space. So we're going to go to new composition, and this one's going to be called first and last name underscore repetition underscore and then today's date. Okay, this one is going to be 10 seconds long, and you are going to create all the assets for this one. So I'm going to go ahead with a white background and say okay. All right, the first thing we're going to do is animate some lines so they appear like they're actually like, you know, drawing on the screen. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to pick the pen tool, and I want to make sure that the fill is to none. You can select the link fill and say none here so that there's no fill. And then with the stroke, I want a solid stroke, so I'm going to pick solid. And then I'm going to pick a gold color, but it's totally up to you what you want to do. And then I want to make sure that the pixel width, the stroke width is 4. So I'm going to select somewhere on the stage to make my first part of my line, and I'm going to hold shift while I'm drawing to get some like really good curved lines here. All right, so I've created this line, and now I want to animate it so that it actually like looks like it's being drawn across the stage. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to twirl down to contents under shape 1. And this part, it's really important that you have the word shape layer 1 selected before you do this next step. So make sure that this is selected, make sure that shape 1 or contents isn't selected, or later in the tutorial it's not going to work out. So I'm going to hit add, and then I'm also going to pick trim paths. Okay, so I'm going to add this animation preset. So now we see that in the drop down menu. So I'm going to open that up. And I want to, at frame 1, I'm going to select the end stopwatch, and I want the end to actually be at 0% right now. And then I'm going to go to the 3-second mark, and I'm going to change it to 100. So let's just take a look at what that looks like so far. So right now it looks like it's being drawn on the stage, but then it's just staying there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go like 5 frames after the first frame, like 5 frames in, and then I'm going to hit the start button, and I'm going to change that. I'm going to leave it at 0%, and then I'm going to go about 5 frames after the 3-second mark, and I'm going to go to 100%. Okay, and let's see what that looks like. Okay, so now it looks like it's, you know, this little funny line that's being drawn across the stage and disappearing afterwards. The last thing I want to do is I want to go to shape 1 and then under stroke 1, and where it says butt cap, because it has like flat edges on either side, I'm going to change it to round. And let's hit the space bar again, and now I just have these like nicer rounder edges here. Okay. Now, so I made this one line, and I actually want to, like, I made this animation. I'm going to duplicate this layer, and then I'm going to add some more lines for this. So I'm going to hit Command D to duplicate, and I'm going to scroll down and scroll down contents, and I actually want to delete where it says shape 1. And this is where you won't see shape 1 and trim path separated if you did not have the shape layer 2 selected when you hit add trim path. So that's what you did wrong if you don't see these separate. So I'm going to select shape 1 and hit delete. Notice that I still have all my trim path attributes, and now I can click and drag a new line, and now when I animate this, notice it has the same animations. So that's how I was able to kind of separate those two. So now I have these 2 animated lines, so we're done with this first part. And now we're going to move into creating little round explosions with some circles with the ellipse tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Layer, New, Shape Layer, and I'm going to use the ellipse tool that's underneath the rectangle tool if you don't see it up here. And I'm going to leave it at no fill, and stroke I'm going to actually change to like a navy blue. I'm going to make this panther colors. Leave it at the 4 point. And I'm going to hold down Shift while I make a circle. That's going to help me make a perfect circle. I'm going to make this circle. And the next thing I want to do is I want to actually center the anchor point to here. So I'm going to take a shortcut by using the pan behind tool. And while I'm doing that, now I can actually select it and move the anchor point to the center of the circle. Okay. So next, I'm going to move the current time indicator to this 2-second mark. And I'm going to twirl down to contents and ellipse, and I'm going to go under stroke 1, and I'm going to select the stroke width stopwatch right here, and I'm going to leave it at 4.0 here, but now I'm going to move to the 3-second mark, and I'm going to change it to 0. All right. And now I'm going to move my current time indicator to frame 1, and I'm going to go down a little bit further where it says transform ellipse, and I'm going to select the scale stopwatch, and I want to change it to 0 here, and it's linked so it's going to make it disappear. And then I'm going to go to the 3-second mark, and I'm going to change the scale to 100%. So I'm going to type that in to 100%. And now I'm going to hit the space bar, and now we can see that it's appearing, but then it looks like, you know, it's exploding and then kind of disappearing afterwards. All right, so I'm going to twirl all this up, and I'm going to bring my current time indicator to 4 seconds, and I'm going to hold Alt and the right bracket, Alt right bracket. I'll make sure that the layer is selected. Alt right bracket, and I cut this one. Now I did that because I want the explosions. I'm going to make more copies of the explosion, but I want it to start kind of a staggered start. So I'm going to hit Command D as many times as you want, and I'm just going to move this one over here. We'll leave that one there. Here, I'm going to move this. So they're going to be exploding all over. They're all going to be all over the composition, and then I'm going to have a staggered start. So they're all going to kind of explode onto the stage at different times. All right, so here we go. We have the lines animating in, and then we have these explosions. Okay, and you can make more than that. That's totally up to you. So now I'm going to move on to making an animated circle. So this is part 3. We're going to go to Layer, New, and this is going to be a new shape layer. And for this one, I'm going to turn on the Title Action Safe grid. It's just like a little grid to help you align some things. So I'm going to go down here and turn on Title Action Safe. And then I'm going to zoom in about 200%. I'm going to take my pen tool, and I think I'm going to go back to, yeah, I'm going to go to gold with this one. So I'm going to go back to like that Panther Pride gold and hit OK. And I'm going to click and drag to make a line in the center of the composition. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to hold Shift to make a straight line, and I'm aligning it to the center of the composition. So now I'm going to go to select the layer, and I'm going to twirl down, and I'm going to select the add, and I'm going to select repeater. All right, and then I'm going to twirl down the repeater, and where it says copies, I'm going to change it to 19. And we can start seeing that these lines are repeating off here. And then I'm going to twirl down where it says repeater 1, and I have several things I'm going to change. Where it says anchor, I'm going to change it to 0, 174. And where it says position, I'm going to change it to 0, 0. And where it says rotation, I'm going to change it to 0 times 20 degrees. Okay, so now we have this circle, but it's not going to be, I want the anchor point to be centered in the circle that I just created. So I'm going to go to Layer, Transform, and then I'm going to go to Center Anchor Point in this layer content. So it's going to actually put the anchor point in the middle of that circle that I just created with this shortcut. And let's go back to Fit. So we see that, so now we see the anchor point, and now we see that I have this circle that was created with just that start of the line and then using all those little shortcuts with repeater. Okay, so I'm going to use the selection tool to center this in the center of the stage. Maybe. Select it and center it. Oh my gosh, it's selecting other stuff. I'm struggling here, kids. Let me close all this other stuff. Here we go. Pulling it with the anchor point to the center. All right, and I'm going to select R to bring up rotation of the shape. And I'm going to move the current time indicator to frame 1. And I'm going to click the rotation stopwatch to start the animation. And then I'm going to move the current time indicator to 5 seconds. And I'm going to change the property to 75 degrees. So now we can see if I animate this, we have the lines going, and then I have the explosions. And I'm going to add a little bit more here. I'm going to add trim pass. So I'm going to twirl down to contents. And I'm going to select the shape layer, and I'm going to say add trim pass again. And I'm going to move to the current time indicator to 2 seconds. And I'm going to select the end right here. And I'm going to change the property to 100, or I'm sorry, 0. And then I'm going to move to the 4-second mark, and I'm going to change it to 100. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like. So now we see it's kind of coming in, and now I'm going to go to the current time indicator to the 5-second mark, and oh, I'm sorry, 5 frames after the 2-second mark, and I'm going to select the start stopwatch. I'm going to leave it at 0%, and then I'm going to go 5 frames after the 4-second mark, and then I'm going to change it to 100%, and I'm going to hit the space bar again. All right, so now we have like this animated circle in the middle. I'm going to click and drag over all the keyframes, right click, and say Easy Ease to make them Easy Ease keyframes. And I'm going to hit the space bar again to see this all together. All right, perfect. So now I have this rotating circle. And now I'm moving on to, I think I might actually make this a little bit faster though. I'm going to click and drag these a little bit closer. Let's try this again. Yeah, I like that a little bit faster. So you can change the timing by actually moving those together. So the last part, so part 4 for this, is we're going to go to Layer, New, Shape Layer. And this time I'm going to use the Ellipse Tool, and I'm going to change the stroke to a navy blue again. So I'm doing no, I'm going to do gray. I changed my mind. I'm going to do gray. And I'm going to change the stroke width to 42. Okay, and I am going to make a huge, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the title safe grid. I'm going to make a huge circle the size of the composition in the center. And I'm going to move it to the center. Okay, then I'm going to twirl down. I'm going to pick shape layer 8, and I'm going to say add trim pass to this one. And I'm going to move the current time indicator to 2 seconds. And I'm going to twirl down my trim path options. And I'm going to hit the start stopwatch and change it to 100%. And and then I'm going to move the current time indicator to 5, and I'm going to change it to 0%. Okay, and then I'm going to move the current time indicator 5 frames after 2 seconds, and I'm going to hit the end, and I'm going to change it to 0, and then I'm going to move it 5 frames after, and I'm going to change it to 100. Okay, so let's hit the space bar to see what that looks like. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the ellipse 1 and the stroke 1, and where it says line cap, I'm going to change it to rounded again to get those rounded circles here. And the next thing I want to do is I'm actually going to duplicate this layer and make several rings in the center here. So I'm going to hit Command D, and then I'm going to hit the S button to bring up scale, and I'm going to scale down my copy. And then I'm going to hit the R key to bring up rotation, and I'm going to rotate it. And then I might need to center because I didn't do a very good job of that. So I'm going to hit the space bar, and now we can see that we have these circles appearing. And I'm going to do it one more time, Command D and S for scale. I'm going to bring down the scale one more time, and then I'm going to hit R for rotation and rotate it a little bit more and center it. And then we'll hit the space bar again, and I did a really terrible job of centering those, so I would go back and fix that. Okay, and last but not least, I'm going to add one more thing. I'm going to go to the project panel, and I'm going to double click to import a graphic, and I'm going to import the panther graphic here. So I'm going to import the head, and I'm going to click and drag that down to the timeline, and I'm going to center it. And now this is my finished composition. I'm going to hit the space bar to look at it. So here we go. We have this graphic. I could have added way more repeaters and whatnot, and I would have centered all these circles. But we're done with this one. We created a bunch of animations pretty quickly by using repetition. All right. So we're going to go to Composition, Add to Render Queue. Make sure it's named correctly, it's exporting to the correct place, hitting Render, and we're done with this one.